What is needed in our country today is not complicated or profound. It doesn't take a special government commission to tell us what America needs. What America needs is jobs, lots of jobs.
I think I've been watching these last several days, and a lot of Americans are really hurting. We got 23 million Americans out of work, or struggling to get a full-time job, and we've got 1 out of 6 Americans now in poverty, 47 million on food stamps, and the president's spending his time talking about saving Big Bird. I'll spend my time talking about saving jobs, creating jobs, helping people get back on their feet, getting rising incomes again. So I think people understand that we can't keep on spending like there's no tomorrow. We can't keep on borrowing and spending massively more than we take in every year. I also want to make sure that we get this economy going. And there are 2 very different paths the country can take. One is a path represented by the president, which at the end of 4 years would mean we'd have $20 trillion in debt, heading towards Greece. I'll get us on track to a balanced budget. The president's path will mean continuing declining in take-home pay. I want to make sure our take-home pay turns around and starts to grow. The president's path means 20 million people out of work, struggling for a good job. I'll get people back to work with 12 million new jobs. I'm going to make sure that we get people off of food stamps, not by cutting the program, but by getting them good jobs. America's going to come back, and for that to happen, we're going to have a president who can work across the aisle. I was in a state where my legislature was 87% Democrat. I learned how to get along on the other side of the aisle. We've got to do that in Washington. Washington is broken. I know what it takes to get this country back, and we'll work with good Democrats and good Republicans to do that. This nation is the hope of the earth. We've been blessed by having a nation that's free and prosperous thanks to the contributions of the greatest generation. They've held a torch for the world to see, a torch of freedom and hope and opportunity. Now it's our turn to take that torch. I'm convinced we'll do it. We need strong leadership. I'd like to be that leader with your support. I'll work with you. I'll lead you in an open and honest way. And I ask for your vote. I'd like to be the next president of the United States to support and help this great nation and to make sure that we all together maintain America as the hope of the earth. Thank you so much.
On July 4th, 2012, the United States celebrated the 236th anniversary of its independence and self-rule with joyous gusto. Days later, after the smoke from the fireworks and grills had cleared, the government released its latest jobs report. Unfortunately, it left little to cheer. In June, just 80,000 jobs were created. That's only 11,000 more than in May and still below what's needed to keep up with population growth. As a result, the overall unemployment rate remained stuck at 8.2%. Black unemployment climbed to 14.4%. Latino unemployment remained in the double digits. Youth unemployment is still the highest in decades. 1 out of 6 Americans is underemployed. 5 million Americans have given up looking for jobs and just disappeared from the workforce altogether. If they were back in the job market, the unemployment rate would stand at over 11%. In sum, the economy is wounded and struggling against increasing odds to repair itself. Though it's not forecast to happen, the risk of sliding back into recession is greater than at any point in over a year. What's troubling is that the anemic jobs number and fragility of the overall economy are the result of an utterly broken political process in Washington, specifically amongst Republicans who dominate the legislative branch. To the detriment of us all, the GOP has opted out of taking any responsibility for fixing the entirely solvable problems of employment and economic growth. At every turn, congressional Republicans have stonewalled President Obama on jobs. But if his proposals were fully implemented, our economy would have added 257,000 jobs more in June. That's 3 times greater than what we actually added, and close to the 300,000 jobs a month mark we must hit to put a real dent in joblessness. Moreover, If Congress had passed Obama's job program and extended his 2009 initiative to prevent up to 100% of the public sector job losses at the state and local level, unemployment would fall below 7%. That's pre-recession territory. And overall economic growth would be at 4.5%. Notably, fixing the public sector employment crisis would solve much of black joblessness. The bottom line is that we remain in recession because Republicans have chosen to gum up the political process during a time of national crisis. Washington guru Thomas Mann calls what they've done hostage-taking. In 2010, Senator Mitch McConnell told the Conservative Heritage Foundation, quote, "The single most important thing Republicans want to achieve is for President Obama to be a one-term president," unquote. According to Gallup, the most important thing to Americans every year since 2008 is for Washington to fix the economy. These two things are at cross-purpose. What is in the best short-term political interest of the Republican Party is not what is in the best interest of most Americans. Economic growth is no mystery. Since Adam Smith published his rule book in 1776, we have spent centuries getting better at figuring out how to make poorer countries wealthier. China, Brazil, and now some African nations are but the latest examples. Essential to each come-out-of-nowhere success story is a government focused on improving the living standards of its people. They do so through policies that have the biggest impact on employment. The number one goal is to benefit the maximum number of citizens in the shortest amount of time. Nations that do this effectively make it. Countries centered on the opposite, government-sponsored wealth transfers to the few over the benefit of the many, remain poor. From his first day in office, President Obama has tried to get the economy right for most Americans. Though sometimes too tepid, badly sold, or disappointingly weakened in an attempt to get non-existent Republican support, Obama has in fact pushed policy after policy to turn the economy around. He needs to do even more. But, like Destiny's Child, Republicans have taken every opportunity to say no, no, no. No to the stimulus plan. No to Obamacare, which will create 400,000 jobs a year when fully implemented, according to the Center for American Progress. No to the climate change bill. 1.9 million jobs over 10 years, according to University of Berkeley researchers. And no to the jobs bill. Almost 2 million jobs in 12 months, according to Moody's chief economist Mark Zandi. 3 out of 4 of these bills received not one Republican vote. The stimulus garnered just 3 Republican votes in the Senate. The GOP answer to the jobs crisis is instead a retread of the policies that broke the economy in the first place. They center on trickle-down economics, which has concentrated wealth amongst the top 5% through tax cuts and rolled back government oversight of key areas of the economy such that Wall Street was able to transform itself into a ring of trillion-dollar betting casinos. The Republicans are so committed to their orthodoxy of lower taxes for the wealthy that they were willing to take the country to the brink of default last summer and risk another recession to extend Bush-era tax cuts for millionaires. Facing united Republican opposition, the president agreed. The Republicans and their wealthy backers won that battle, but the country lost. Their antics cost the country its AAA debt rating for the first time in history. The problem is that this is not your father's Republican Party. The GOP of Eisenhower, Ford, and George H.W. Bush has been hijacked by a small group of anti-government diehards and radical social conservatives funded by dark pools of money. Through the Tea Party network of secretive political action committees, the moneyed few have been successful at remaking the GOP, so much so that former Governor Jeb Bush declared himself uncomfortable in the hardened party that they've fashioned. Colin Powell has long alluded to the same. This takeover of the GOP led Norman Ornstein, a fiercely nonpartisan congressional watcher at the Conservative American Enterprise Institute, to conclude that, quote, "We have a Republican Party that has 2 elements. One is an extreme element, and the other is ruthlessly pragmatic, Mitch McConnell embodying them, which put blocking policies and embarrassing the party of the president ahead of solving problems that are immediate and deep. It's just outside the bounds," unquote. Ornstein is right, and Americans are living the result. If things have any hope of getting better, the Republican Party needs to get serious about governing again. America was not designed to function with one grown-up party and the other a bomb-throwing one. It only works when you have people from different political backgrounds who fight hard but act in the best interest of us all. A small group of people pushing a narrow agenda was the greatest fear of the Founding Fathers. They worried that it could sink the country and ruin the democratic experiment. James Madison, Declaration of Independence signee and fourth President of the United States, warned against the violence of the faction, which could wreck the system of governance. He defined this group as a number of citizens united by a common impulse of passion, or of interest, that is adverse to the rights of the aggregate interests of the community. What Madison described sounds a lot like the Republican Party we've got right now. But we can turn the situation around. In an election year, each of our voices matters more. We need to use them to demand a credible plan from the Republican Party to fix the chaos that it helped to create. It's actually the only way things will get better.